So if you're watching this video, you're probably thinking of moving to New York City with your best friend. I do think that that's a really good option because it's so overwhelming to move to New York City. And if you and your best friend are willing to do it together, then what could be more fun than that, you know? So it's very exciting to take on a new adventure with someone that's extremely close with you. And I didn't move to New York City with any of my friends actually at all. I did it alone, but at the same time, I would have loved if one of my friends from my hometown or my college town were able to do that with me. So I do think that moving to New York City with your best friend could be a good option. Now, there are some things that I do want you to consider though before moving to New York City with your best friend. So when you're moving to New York City with someone that you're already close with, it can be really easy to kind of stay in your own bubble and not branch out and meet new people. And I've actually seen this happen with people who moved to New York City with friends that they've had previously outside of the city. And I don't want this to happen to you. I want both of you guys to be able to branch out, meet new people, make new friends, and then maybe combine those friends, because that is one of the best parts about New York City. It's all the amazing people that you're able to meet here. So if you're moving to New York City with someone you know, it's so easy to just kind of like stay in your own world and not branch out. And you didn't move to New York City for that. So I do think that it's important for you guys to both have kind of like your separate lives as well, and to even bring them together at some point, because that's like the best way to meet new people. Another thing that could happen when you move to New York City, and I don't want this to scare you from moving to New York City with your best friend, I really don't, but I have seen at times two friends move in together for the first time and that they were just friends, but they never lived together, and living together changed, if not ruined, the relationship that they had. So I do want you to be careful about that, because being best friends with someone is one thing and being roommates with them could be another. Sometimes it works out really, really well, and then sometimes it doesn't. Now, I am not speaking from experience with this, because when I had roommates, I never lived with a friend. I always lived with random roommates that I met from being my roommates. So I don't have any experience with this, besides the only experience I have is from my friends who ended up living with friends. So that's the only time that I've been around that, but I personally don't have a story to share with you about that. So at the same time, I definitely want you to consider that as well, what I'm saying, because I've never personally had that experience, but it is something that could happen. Another thing that I've actually seen as well is that two friends moved to New York City from a faraway state or somewhere like across the country, right? And one person loves New York City and the other person doesn't. And that can also affect the friendship as well. So it's okay for two people to have two different perspectives on New York City. And just because you love New York City, you can't expect everyone else in your life to, or vice versa. You might hate New York City and then your friend might love it and not understand your perspective as well. So I think that when two friends are trying to move to New York City together, they both picture themselves having this amazing life and both loving New York City, which that might not be the case, and that's okay as well. Now, another thing that can happen is that you're moving to New York City with your best friend and you guys pick a neighborhood, but then when you get there, one person might love the neighborhood and the other person might not. That is also very common. All these scenarios are very common. And I do see this one particularly a lot, where someone is in love with the neighborhood and the other person likes New York City and likes living with that person, but they don't love the neighborhood. And they might end up moving out of that apartment at some point because that neighborhood just doesn't work for them in particular. And that's completely okay too. So the neighborhood that you pick to live in New York City is such a personal decision. And if you watch my videos at this point, you probably know that I actually think that that's more important than the actual apartment that you have, because there's so much about your life that is tied to the neighborhood that you choose to live in. So I think it's the most important decision. So it's okay if one person hates that neighborhood and the other person loves that neighborhood. That's very, very common, and that happens actually very often. So I don't want you to think that there's anything wrong with that. So these are just a couple things to think about before moving to New York City with your best friend. I don't ever want to discourage you from doing that, because I do think it's a great way to just make that leap into New York City and get out of your comfort zone. However, I do want you to also get out of your comfort zone when you're here in New York City, meet new people, branch out, and be two separate people, because I think that if you are always together and not meeting new people, it might prevent you from really having the life that you always wanted in New York City. And that's what the goal of this channel is. I'm always here to really push you out of your comfort zone and get you to have the life that you actually wanted in New York City, because I want to set you up for success here. So like I said, I hope this helped you. And if you can share any of your experiences or have any other questions, please share them in the comments, because like always, I love to hear from you guys.